Okay. Pledge allegiance to the flag, of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah, I'll read the district's mission statement. Grounded by our history as one of the oldest publicly supported schools in Wisconsin, Mineral Point School District is the heart of a small community that educates and inspires our students for a bright future in a big world. Okay. Roll call, Angie.
Bergstrom,
Here.
Bush,
Here.
Dunn,
Here.
Harris, Eisner, Johnston,
Here.
Gelding.
Here. Harris and Heisner have been excused. Okay, recognitions.
We'll start with Bill Mitchell and Dan Burson, both coaches. Bill was inducted into the Wisconsin Basketball Coaches Hall of Fame just a couple weeks ago. Longtime pointer, born and bred, and had a really lasting impact on a lot of student athletes and programs over the years. And just a great honor for Bill to represent our school. I think it's a great honor for us to have Bill into the Basketball Hall of Fame. And Coach Burson, Coach of the Year, and also a very prestigious award, the Steve Randall Award. Steve Randall has some local ties, an Iowa Grant native. Steve was a very high character individual, a long, lengthy coaching career, passed away suddenly. And there's and the Basketball Coaches Association has an award called the Steve Randall Award. So Coach Burson was not only the Coach of the Year, but also received the Steve Randall Award as an upstanding moral individual, great leader. So both gentlemen are here. I don't know if either one would like to say anything to the board.
I just want to, first I want to congratulate Bill. I mean, has anybody coached 40 years here? I mean, he might be the only one. That's incredible to coach for 40 years. With the passion that he did for all 40 years, which is amazing. I just want to thank him for, I know Mitch feels the same way, for all he did for the boys program and the girls program as well.
Well, I hope you stick around for.
The other thing I want to say, I think when a coach receives an award, Coach of the Year, Randall Award, I think you're doing so, you're representing the team. Obviously, a coach can't do that by himself and it plays a small role in that. It's about the assistant coaches, it's about the managers, but more importantly, it's about the players, right? Because none of these things happen without the success of the players. So that's really, our kids had a great year last year, and it's really about them. Thank you.
Congratulations to both gentlemen.
Say I was lucky to coach Jim Bennett, Dan Burson, Mitch. What's your name? Matt. Bennett, I had a lot of good mentors, and it made it easier for me to stay here and coach, and obviously the kids are the biggest thing. So I thank you for that.
He's got a strong back too, so when somebody my size jumps out of his arms and he doesn't collapse.
That was a shock too. Lucky we got a picture.
No,
That was fun.
well deserved. And again, a positive role model, both gentlemen, positive role models for our kids in our community. So congratulations. Next up, our very own Sandy Weitzel. Sandy traveled to England. She was recognized as a bard. She said it was quite the celebration. She had come back since her trip to England, to Cornwall. She was instrumental in the student exchanges for many, many years, chaperoning, getting things set up, making sure there were chaperones here. And it's quite an honor for someone like Sandy to be recognized as a bard. It's part of kind of explaining and promoting Cornwall and the connection twinned with Redruth, England. So she said some of the former bards were there, and it was quite an experience for her. And again, keeping Mineral Point School District on the map in an international sense. So congratulations to Sandy Weitzel. Next up, Mo May Grimm was honored as the Citizen of the Year for Mineral Point. If you don't know, Mo is for Pointers Kids Club. Took a little begging, little groveling, maybe even a little arm twisting. But a year ago, Mo was willing to take on the Pointer Kid Club before school, after school program, because we have such a need for childcare. She also works a lot with the Pointer Kitchen or food pantry, so to speak. Mo, would you like to say anything in regards to this honor?
Mineral Point. Winter Pantry. It was just people saying, yes, we can do that, yes, we can do that, one after another, or coming up with a better idea. And one of my favorite stories at the time when we first launched it, I traveled a lot for my work. That night I was in a hotel in Virginia and I saw that the Bastings were doing a fundraiser. It was Christmas time, cocoa. People don't ask, they just do it and they don't need to ask. And it's just been incredible, the amount of behind that. Winter Kids Club, Mitch, I think it was Angie, you or Angie sent me an email asking me to do it. What you did was you said those magic words that I can remember exactly what you asked.
Shh, don't give the secrets away.
So very, like, what did I just do? But I've come to love that job. It's a lot of fun. The parents are extremely supportive, appreciative. Kids are, for the most part, very well behaved. Really need some recognition with my kids, but he has been an amazing support. And no, you have. Last year I got in over my head, especially last year. You got lost. I don't know that I would have stuck with it had you not.
Congratulations to Mo May Grimm, Mineral Point Citizen of the Year.
Awesome.
Next up is a student who is really quite quiet. He's just kind of in the background of a lot of things that happen here at school. No, that's not true. Mr. Matthew Gannon, who is involved in so many things and instrumental in helping push a lot of things forward as far as the Mineral Point School District, getting out the community. Matthew actually spent not this past Saturday, the Saturday before, in the booth during the radio broadcast of the Badger Purdue football game. He was job shadowing Matt LePay. I had the good fortune of meeting Mr. LePay at the Basketball Coaches Association banquet, and I thanked him for taking on one of our kids and giving him this opportunity to do a job shadow. And had a chance to speak with Matthew today. He said he loved it. He said he just met so many people and how he does a lot of things with Queen Bee, and they are attached to some of the programs that are being run through the university. So just a great honor. And not only that, but Matthew earned an academic honors from the College Board as recipient of the National Rural Small Town Recognition Award. The College Board is the one that puts on like the ACT exam and has a lot of national reach. And as far as I know, Dan, you've been here a while. Is Matthew maybe the first person?
You call anybody else. Doing the soccer game right now, that's why he's not here.
Correct. Yeah. He's a little busy tonight. So doesn't take a lot of downtime. We get Matthew earned this by honoring and excelling in the PSAT, AP exams, as well as having to have a 3.5 GPA or higher. Matthew is just an all-around outstanding student, role model, and a human being. Matthew was part of our ad hoc committee as a middle school student a few years ago. He's involved and he will sorely be missed when graduation rolls on, but congratulations to Matthew Gannon. This year, each year, the school board has an opportunity to nominate area businesses for the WASB, Wisconsin Association of School Boards Business Honor Roll. I do not see anyone here tonight. But nominated were AB Electric. AB Electric has provided services to the school district many times at reduced rates. They provide youth option or youth apprenticeship opportunities for our students. They're very involved and very supportive of what we're trying to do here, and just a great community business. Much can be said about Barn Scrapers as well. They provide services many times at reduced rates, and again, also provide youth apprenticeship opportunities. You know, that program has grown, and it's grown a lot because of our local businesses willing to take on some of our students in those roles. And finally, the Dodge Point Country Club, home to the newly crowned state champions for Mineral Point Golf last spring. The owners, Corey Soko and his mom Deb, run the golf course. There is no charge for our team to use the course. A lot of times you pay a small fee, or sometimes your student athletes have to become members of the golf course. None of those things are held here to the Mineral Point School District from the golf course. During the season, students are able to go out there and practice whenever they want to work on their game and work on their craft. They host several things for us. Last year's staff Christmas celebration, when we invited a lot of the retired area teachers back to it. We were able to hold it. They provide great services for us at that time, so it's a great partnership. So unfortunately, none of them could be here tonight, but congratulations to all three businesses as the Mineral Point School Board's Business Honor Roll awardees. Yeah.
Okay, before we go to communications, we'll vote on the consent agenda. So we've got minutes from the September regular meeting, our strategic plan work session, policy committee, and our ad hoc committee on cell phone use and social media. And we got bills payable, credit card statement activity. I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda in its entirety, or we can approve them individually.
I'll make the motion. We approve the consent agenda as a whole.
I'll second.
Okay. Motion Bergstrom. Any comments or questions?
Brooks,
Yes.
Johnston,
Yes.
Gelding,
Yes.
Bergstrom.
Yes.
Dunn.
Yes. Okay, we'll go to communications, start with board communications received. Rachel, you want to start?
Yeah, I haven't gotten any individually in the last
Okay.
several weeks.
A couple comments made at the parade around, when are we gonna upgrade the air conditioning in this school? But I just said, current focus is operating district.
I had a couple parent emails. One was about our policy to use our communications infrastructure to promote youth clubs and activities in the community. I basically directed that to the administration and Joelle. And just for the sake of the whole board, I might have sent this out, but I mean, basically the current practice, and I think several other districts do this, is to not promote any non-school activity. Because the prevailing sense and kind of just the general recommendation to school boards is to school districts is if you promote one activity, you should promote every activity. And so does that about sum it up?
That's correct.
Okay,
Yes.
so the current practice is to not do any activity outside the school. So that was handled through and I think Mr. Carr. Or no, was that through, did you respond to that, or I'm sorry, it doesn't matter, but
No, we met, and the email was first directed at Mr. Carr, so we met and crafted the response that he provided.
okay, yeah, great. Thank you for
Yep.
opening it. And then I had a parent question about just questions about homecoming and the king and queen and the voting setup and the fall athlete escorts today. So questions about why we do all of that. So again, I forwarded that on administration and they answered the question for the parent.
I got that one as well. I was just gonna
Okay.
get it out. I'm pretty sure that was this month.
I think that's all I had, Christy.
I didn't have any direct questions or emails.
I had a couple of different interesting conversations. Spent half a week talking to people about toilet paper, which is an annual thing. And just try to stress to them that, the school does the best they can to make sure the students are aware that property is different. Interestingly enough, 3 of the people that spoke to me complaining also used the phrase, "I'm sure my child is doing it too." So I also kind of made a point like, okay, maybe start this conversation at home, or don't have it at all. But just more around, the difference between throwing toilet paper in a tree and writing something inappropriate on a car or doing something to property. And that I thought we, in the past, and I'm assuming again this year as well, had delivered that message pretty well. And then had an interesting 2 similar conversations around the yard signs in Mineral Point and the confusion it's causing with the yeses and the nos and the blue signs. And then, so more for clarity in general, and I kind of got the answers back to these people, but what I've seen is there's some yes signs for the constitutional amendment. There are some no signs, which some of are blue, which is leading some to believe that those are referendum signs. And some of the signs do say referendum, but those blue signs that are no are also constitutional amendment signs. And now there are yes signs, I believe with a pointer paw on them, and it says support, the Mineral Point kids, which are referendum signs. And to my knowledge, I have not seen any no signs regarding the school referendum. But there had been some confusion on that, like, why does this person have a yes sign and a no sign in their yard that both look like they're for the referendum? And why is this person, who should obviously be supporting the referendum, have a no sign in their yard? So just things like that. So just kind of hopefully to sort that out for anybody else that may be confused about all the yeses and nos going around and the different signs. And then I had a very good conversation with Marquez from Baird, who was at our last presentation on the referendum, which quick plug, the next one will be Wednesday, the 23rd at
6 p.m.
at 6 o'clock. And kind of plugging for that as well is, he was first so complimentary on the presentation itself and said this is what he does for a living, spends his springs and falls in schools, listening to presentations, and it was the best presentation he had seen, both from content and from the work we had done in advance, preparing ourselves for going to referendum, the decisions we've made prior to referendum, not being surprised by the ESSER fiscal cliff or different things like that. So it was reassuring to me to hear from somebody who has been to a number of schools, that we've done what we could prior to going to the public, and that we are telling the story the right way. So to hear somebody that's, in that position saying, our case is pretty strong, made me feel pretty good. So.
Thanks, Andy. Okay, next we'll have some citizen communications. Anyone sign up tonight, Angie? Okay. Anyone here can raise your hand for public comment. Anyone online can also use your raise the hand icon if you'd like to have your 3 minutes. Going once, going twice. Okay. Next, we'll go to items for information. We'll review our school board priorities. First is recruitment or retention of staff. Mitch, do you have anything new on that?
I will pass around a thank you card. If you remember, one of the suggestions out of recruiting and retaining is if we have student teachers to try to provide gas card to kind of help offset the expense of driving back and forth. So I was able to do that. We have one currently in this building. Very grateful, very surprised. So I think the more we have, I think that will certainly get out that this school district cares about what's the future of education, and, you know, that might just keep us on the radar for a few students if we need down the road, somebody that looking for their first teaching job. So that's just part of that first goal about recruiting and retaining people.
I hate to beat a dead horse, but
I am waiting on the logo. It was supposed to be out there, given back to me so I could get it to Mr. Webb to get on our website. I will follow up with that tomorrow.
okay.
I just had that conversation with somebody last week about it, and not sure where it is.
Talking about our recruitment video. It's almost ready for
Probably 99.9%
prime
ready.
time.
We scheduled our next staff rep meeting, right?
Yes, it's in November. And
25th.
at options.
Oh,
Yes,
that's right.
November 18th. It's down in the board business portion of the agenda. November 18th is when that meeting is for the next, oh, sorry. That's the 25th. You have November 18th as a strategic plan meeting, but November 25th is the building rep meeting.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Promoting safety and belonging with staff and students. I know there was a staff tailgate before the homecoming game. Thought that was cool.
Correct. And next month you'll have your SEL team will be here to kind of give a report out on what's been taking place this week or this school year, not this week, this school year. So we're a month ahead, but they'll be here to kind of give some updates.
There's a sources community meeting coming up, isn't there, Christine? That's open to the
yes,
public.
November 18th. Yes,
Yes,
um,
yes.
does Danny have anything put together for that yet to send out?
Handed things out at the parade last week.
Oh, great.
They handed out half sheet flyers at the parade.
Is there
And it
any,
included the QR code, I think like a QR code or a link to a Google form for registration.
okay, is that gonna go out in an email at all?
Assuming, yes.
Okay, for those of us who missed the parade.
I'm assuming it is, no, I can double check with Danny tomorrow,
Okay.
but I know she asked me to check the sheet over and
I think there'll be an email out and also I'll put it on my newsletter.
Okay.
Anything else on that second priority?
No.
Okay. School board governance. We're in the process of updating and revising our strategic plan from 2017, I think. And we just talked about when our next meeting is. Basically, for those who weren't there, I mean, the next meeting is gonna basically be like to wordsmith those first parts, the vision statement and the mission statement and the core values. Just to kind of organize that and get that the way we want it. That's what that meeting is gonna be about. And I'll talk more about that later under board business. I guess I also wanted to say that we're planning on attending the WASB State Convention in January to learn more about how to be a better school board. And we're cranking out policies and policy committee. So as we'll soon find, as we'll soon see. Okay. Anything, anyone want to add to that? Well, I think our final board evaluation tool will be reviewed at the next regular meeting, November meeting. So I'll send out an email reminder. Okay, budget comparison.
You have in your board packets, the September budget from 2023, where at this point in time, a year ago, we've expended 19.8% of our budget. So far this year in 2024, we've expended 20.85 or 20.9% of our budget. So basically about a percentage point difference in spending. And again, because we know we're looking at a deficit, that is not surprising to me that we would be a little bit ahead this year compared to last year.
Questions or comments about that? Okay, we'll go to the third Friday enrollment.
So the number of students we have in our district this year, the number of students that walk in our buildings is 799. That is the highest it's been since I've been employed in the district. Then when you factor in open enrollment in, you subtract those students from our district count. We have 102 students who have open enrolled into the district. That is the highest number since I've been employed in the district. This is my 14th year here. You add back the 28 students who open enroll out, and that is the lowest number of students for the district since I've been employed here. Then you factor in that our 3-year-old program, those students only count as a half a child, and the 4-year-old students only count as 6/10 of a child. So basically, we're sitting at 708 students. When you factor in summer school, our enrollment is actually up a couple of students compared to the last few years. But when the state looks at the wonderful 3-year rolling average, we're actually down 2 students based on that average. We lost about 723 in that enrollment number. And we have 2 years where our enrollment was 715. And then this year we're at 717. So basically our revenue based on our student enrollment is flat. We have hold harmless, so we get additional revenue for the 2 students that we have dropped off of last year's. We were 718 last year, and we're 716 as far as our revenue limit student enrollment count.
Can I ask a question? Hold harmless is because we dropped, we only get that for 1 year?
Correct.
Okay.
So if our enrollment goes up again next year by a couple students, we should go back up because we'll be dropping 715 off of our enrollment count and adding a little bit higher number. So that should push our enrollment up a little bit. So you can't just walk in and say, I've got almost 800 students in my building, which we do, but they just don't get to count as 800 students. And then you got to take out the kids that want to be here that come from other districts. So it's difficult. If we had 799 students in here, we would not get sparsity aid based on our enrollment. So there are other things that the state uses to help offset some of those things, but we are in a good position when it comes to our student enrollment.
Can you explain how the 725 is different than the 708?
The 725 is the district only students. So if you see district accounting in the top of that column, those are only our students. So that takes out any of the open enrolled in students from our count.
It as a whole.
Got it, got it.
So you see,
5 or the point.
right, yeah, the 3-year-olds, there's 5 3-year-old children in our district. It's still 5 there because they're 5 whole kids that come in the front door. But as far as the state's enrollment count is, they only count for a half a student. So we get 2.5, you round it up to, we get 3 students there. We have 37 4-year-olds, but they only count as 6/10. So then that final column, that FTE full-time enrollment column is what gets reported on our revenue limit worksheet.
We get like federal flow through dollars, or how does it work for 4-year-olds if they're on an IEP? Can you come in with an IEP as a 4-year-old?
Eligible for services at the age of 3.
Then when they come in with an
3 and
IEP,
4-year-olds that
okay,
we service.
and they count within like federal reimbursement rates or,
Our federal reimbursement rates are dependent upon our our school enrollment, not our special ed percentages.
Oh, that's
I actually
right.
got clarification on that last year, because our federal grant money kept going down, but our percent of students in special education kept going up. And when I talked to the state, it's based upon your school's enrollment,
Got it.
not your special ed percentage.
so like, they factor in like, your percentage of special ed students based on this enrollment should be X number, so that's what we'll give you money for.
They like to do that, and then they'll tell you, you're overqualifying students. Which my response is, if we have a student who has a need, and they've gone through all of the appropriate requirements, we're going to provide services, whether that pushes us to 9%, 10%, 11%, that doesn't matter to us. We're going to make sure that the students get the education they need.
Okay, thank you.
Last question, I'm sorry. So for the 3-year rolling average, you said a 715 dropped off?
Will drop off. We lost about 723 students. Was last year's year 3. So now it drops off. So we have 2 years where our enrollment was basically 715 in back-to-back years. And then this enrollment comes in a little bit higher than 750 because you get to add in your summer school count.
We're adding the summer school count to the 708?
Correct.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Some fuzzy math there.
Exactly.
Okay. We'll move on to the ad hoc committee on cell phone social media use.
I'll let one of the co-chairs speak to that, Mr. Austin.
Yeah, right. Who's the other coach?
Tim Swinson is the other coach.
Okay, thank you.
So a staff member and then family members. We met about a week and a half ago. Had a really good meeting. We started off with the list of what you guys had provided to kind of guide us there. One of the things we started off, we kind of reviewed the current policies just to talk about how they were going. So on, it seemed like everything's kind of working. Obviously, we can always tighten up and change things and modify it to fit our needs. After that, we got talking about what type of data we'd like to review. So we are actually going to be sending out a survey to students on cell phone use, technology use. We included some video gaming in there too, because I think it's all kind of connected together.
Social media.
Yep, social media. That will be going out to the high school on Friday. Middle school will probably be early next week, and then we said we were gonna go down to 4th grade. We'll have 4th grade through 12th grade students take that cert. We are having a couple students help with that, so I sent it to them so they can kind of review it today and give some suggestions. Because we're actually probably gonna have those students during the media class report that out as a article or as a short informational thing on the news as well. So kids are seeing that data out there. We're also going to use the YRBS data to help kind of guide some of that conversation as well. And then the next thing we kind of talked about is identifying the needs. So primarily helping to intentionally teach students how to use technology properly, what to do with that, help providing parent information on applications, on use that we're seeing with teenagers at this age. And probably providing some sort of like either an online platform or something where we can have information housed at and store that at for people to access, and possibly some, either just flyers or things that, so they can get that information. Probably a QR code, the flyer. I gotta use Matthew White. But overall, a really good meeting. So myself, Rob, Ms. McGraw, Ms. McCoy are all on the committee. We sat today and kind of looked through that survey, and then, like I said, I sent it out to him. I also, which he kind of reviewed it and added his thoughts, and out to a couple of kids to get their thoughts on it before we kind of finalize it to get it ready for Friday. For the high school.
The survey to help understand usage and things like
Yeah,
that, or?
usage, what apps they're using the most, time spent on it. Yep.
After a certain amount of time when they're using it.
Yeah. Well, I'll probably do. We were trying to wait till the students got back to us, which they did today. Ms. McCoy and I will probably actually sit down and put it together tomorrow. And then I will probably share it to you so you can share it out. And I think anything that we put in there, we try to be very mindful of what information we're trying to collect and make sure we're getting what the committee was kind of looking for there.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Austin?
I want to add that, so I'm part of the ad hoc committee. I was really impressed with the information that you two provided as far as like how cell phones are actually being used right now in the school. And it just seems like our students are being very responsible with them in the school during the school day. And that they seem to be following policy for the most part. And that and that any effects that social media might be having on our students are coming back to school from in the evenings and over the weekends. And that was a big, I think that was something that we talked about quite a bit. But yeah, I was just really impressed with how, and Tom, like how even you talked about like how you really don't see it at the elementary school, but you're starting to, and something came up and you dealt with it right away. So I just want to say that I was really impressed with how you were all handling it right now.
Great, well, thank you for the update and for participating in the committee. Appreciate it. I know it's extra time.
Since we're still in information.
Yeah.
We might want to talk about some of the testing data that just came out. If you wouldn't mind, we'd start with who wants to volunteer? Mr. Ingwell, it looks like you're jumping up to the table and
Do have one of my staff members also join us tonight. Mr. Strader is here, one of our interventionists at the elementary. He's part of the MTSS team as well. So we compiled our fall testings.
You all can come up here and sit if you want.
Yeah. So we compiled our Ames Web STAR testing for the fall. Into the graphs from there, from the pie chart to the bar graphs. So we broke it down into the 0 to 24th percentile, the 25th to the 74th, and then the 75th to the 99th percentile. So you kind of see the difference from there. Just to kind of show you the breakdown. So obviously with the Act 20 and using the 25th and below, the 24th percentile and below, as we get into the winter assessments and looking at obviously the personal reading plans. So we kind of broke it down to kind of show you the difference of after the winter assessments, which percent of the students will get into personal reading plans, kind of to show you what that percentage is. But you can just see based on the reading and math, and then the breakdown of the bar would be obviously each by each grade level in both math and reading. And our last slide also is showing you the strengths that we noticed and what are some of our next steps coming forward.
What percentile is considered grade level?
Well, I just put it back up,
Oh.
because when I look at data, it can be extremely overwhelming, so maybe all you guys are way better than me, but I am Rachel Schrader, I haven't had the pleasure of meeting all of you, but I'm the reading specialist and the reading interventionist at the elementary, with the reading specialist for the whole school district. But that, again, that first one, to answer your question, Dr. Dunn, proficient would be 50th percentile and above. However, you know, anybody, we have the MTSS is the multi-tier support system, and we have support in place for all levels, everybody from the 24th percent below, as well as, you know, even the top, extending support for those who are the high flyers as well. But looking at this, the green and the blue, we kind of combined a couple of those percentiles just to make it a little bit more manageable. So, you know, we are looking at about 67% of our kids being, you know, proficient is what we're going to call them. That would include the 25th to the 49th. However, you know, those kids are also receiving support, but, you know, we're really, it's the top end and the low end that are receiving the extra support, if you will. But we're meeting everyone where they're at with the win time, which is what I need. Reading, this is the first time with Act 20 that we implemented the Ames Web testing. So that was the first time that most schools in the state are going to experience that test. Math, you can see there when we break it down, math is looking, you know, pretty phenomenal, all in all. Lots of good things going on with math. If you flip over to the breakdown of reading, the tricky thing about the Ames Web test that we're reporting on here is Tom was referring to the PRPs, which is the the personal reading plans. And they are based for first grade through third grade on one assessment. We do further testing for the state, as well as we do diagnostic assessments to figure out, okay, why is a student, you know, maybe not doing well? But per the state, this is just measuring one measure, and that would be what's called an ORF, which is an oral reading fluency. It mostly measures rate. However, the idea is with behind science of reading, you know, reading is a growth. You know, you start with decoding, which is letter names, letter sounds, you know, sounding out, so to speak, act. And then you work up to accuracy. And as your accuracy builds, then your fluency improves, which then should lead to the ultimate thing, which is comprehension. So fluency would be the oral reading fluency, which should measure your accuracy, your decoding. So if you're good at some of those foundational skills, then that should then lead to a good ORF. However, you know, and another reason is because rate is an easy thing to measure. It's a number. So that was why I included the vocabulary one as well, because that would be another single measure. So if you compare the reading to the vocabulary, I mean, our vocabulary is extremely strong. Second grade and third grade, they actually, per this test, it was the first time, but it actually does read to them since it's measuring vocabulary. But there was a robotic voice that some of the kids expressed some concern about. So I think there's going to be a learning curve there, you know, just getting used to hearing that voice. For example, one question was, to perch is, well, the robotic voice would say to perch is. So it kind of sounded like purchase or purchase. So we had a lot of hands raised about that, just little things like that, that there's going to be some learning curve. We know that, you know, the numbers are, you know, it is what it is. It's a baseline, it's a starting point. So as we progress, we have a lot of really proactive, preventative things in place that are just going to take some time. They're going to take, you know, even our curriculum benchmark is only 2 years old. Any good curriculum will take, you know, 2 to 3 years to implement and up to 5 years to show any results. So with Tom, you know, implementing WIN back in place, that's going to be huge. We have everyone trained in UFly. Per Act 20, we also have to train everyone in foundational reading skills, K-3, but we are doing everyone across the board. Teachers, fourth and fifth teachers, special ed teachers. So we have a lot of really, really good things in place, and I'm actually excited because this is really going to show how much growth Mineral Point is capable of.
You could only focus on one of these. Which one would have the biggest impact?
That is a great question. I personally, although the Act 20 is primarily around science of reading, there were many different options to choose from that teachers, that those districts could choose for reading teacher training. We chose Keys, which is phenomenal. A few years ago, I was trained in what's called IMSE. They're all Orton Gillingham approaches. And IMSE has made a huge impact on my teaching. So I'm really excited that we're all getting the Keys training to have that common vocabulary, especially like what dedication and for this school district to even include the specials and the encores teachers, because they're, well, not only are they building vocabulary and doing some of those things during their lessons, but also because they're part of WIN groups. You know, they're doing some of these multi-tiered support systems, and they're seeing some, whether they're high flyers or even some of our lower kids, you know, they're supporting even the average kids. So to all of us have the same background, the same knowledge, I think that's just going to be huge in the future.
Any roadblocks to completing that Keys training?
The Keys training, I would just say, you know, time, and so far it's gone really, really well. I mean, again, thank you all for allowing us to build it into our PLC time. I thank the staff because it's a huge commitment on the staff's part. Staff has been great about, I mean, embracing it with open arms. There's going to be a couple tough ones coming up. We have a 7-hour training on one of our professional development days. That's a lot to ask anybody to sit there for 7 hours of training. But it's worth it. And I think the staff sees that. And I think, like I said, they're embracing it. And I think any of the hesitation or worry about the time that we're giving up for other things that we all know we have to do, they're seeing the value, and there's definitely buy-in. And, you know, we have data meetings tomorrow. I think they'll truly see how much this is going to support us supporting the kids. And it helps to stem the discussions and the conversations. And we always tie it back to the new curriculum and to the foundational skills that we're all learning. And it's just funny how so much of this was not, you know, the things they don't teach in to be a teacher, you know, like cleaning up aisle 5. And then, you know, also some of these, well, this was how I was taught, but that doesn't mean that was how, this was how I was taught when I was little, but it's not necessarily how I was taught to teach it. So, yeah.
A couple other key things, obviously, were at some point in time in the near future, maybe policy committee, we'd like to look at summer school, what that 20 would look like come forward, plus also the transition from 3rd to 4th with the Act 20. Possibly for that. With the Act 20, their recommendation, if someone does not pass, so someone does not get through their reading plan, that they would actually be back in. Yeah. Okay. But it still comes back to local control, but I like to bring that to the policy committee and talk about it, just to make sure we're.
Original language in Act 20 basically said they could not advance, and then they backed off of that. There's also, in essence, kind of a mandatory summer school, depending on what percentile you score in, so that you have additional opportunities to build up some of those strengths.
The thing about Act 20 is it all comes back to local control, as Tom said, but the biggest obstacle that I see for us, honestly, you know, time is always hard, but just budget, since there's no offset in cost, there's no you know, support that way. But otherwise, everything that Act 20 is asking us to do, Mineral Point has always done. This is just a more formal way of doing things. We've always provided kids with personalized reading plans. We just didn't have like a file that said, you know, but we've always done, you know, small groups. We've always given kids what I need, whether it was a WIN group or not. But this is just a more accountable, formalized way of doing things.
Just so I'm understanding this correctly, because I'm sure the reading experts in the state government have it right, but so these scores are from Ames Web and they only represent oral reading.
This chart right here for grades 1 through
Through
3,
three.
yes.
But
Great.
this is like the score.
How it determines whether or not a student would be below the 24th percentile to flag a personal reading plan. However, Andy, then there are diagnostics that you can give. And we've always done that as well, but those, based on those diagnostics, you can localize your decision to determine. Again, this is like taking a temperature. This is one day, one moment in time, right?
So there's also like,
There's,
you have vocabulary, we're still getting like comprehension
that's,
questions and scores from this like we used to, or?
well, the ultimate
Not
goal
so
is to
much.
provide the foundations of reading so that that is what you're leading up to.
Okay.
Obviously, some of these kids, so the science of reading is based around teaching to read so that we can ultimately have comprehension. But
Okay.
with these foundational skills, they're mostly checking on the foundational skills to see if those skills are in place to, by second grade, of course, we want them comprehending. And by first grade, of course, we want them comprehending. By kindergarten, as soon as they're readers, we want that. But first we have to have those foundational skills in place, just so we're not like guessing with.
And I think that's my question with like the grade 3 scores. Just looking at the star scores, obviously our star scores probably would have been different in grade 3, but I mean, this doesn't represent that 40% of our students can't comprehend. It represents they don't read fast enough to please,
That's a
each
possibility,
level.
correct,
but
correct.
they might be comprehending what they're reading slowly.
That is a great point.
Okay,
Yeah, so theoretically, before they soften the language, if we ended the year with a 40% of our third graders in the red here, that would be how many they would recommend don't move to 4th grade. I mean, obviously it builds throughout the year, so like you would expect these scores to grow as kids learn and they get those
Summer
foundations
slide
in,
and some of those other things, yeah, for
Mhm,
sure. But
okay.
yes, you're right, Rachel.
It's just as an, thought experiment of like, what? Okay,
It is.
I know with fall conference coming up, working on pushing out an information packet to parents of like some background knowledge of Act 20, and then they'll receive their students' testing scores at the fall conference from there.
Great. And don't, especially for the younger grades, don't the curriculum companies send out like parent guides or like things parents can do at home to support reading that we could push out with that too?
Well, and like even, I mean, that's something that I could include as well, like, and we used to get the reading connection,
Oh, yeah.
which was something that I always sent out with weekly newsletter, which was just had all kinds of really good ideas for parents to do at home. But
Or any of the, like, just since they're gonna have something and they're thinking about it, it might be, this already exists.
It's still a partnership.
Yeah.
It's a
It's still a
partnership between the
partnership.
homes and
Yeah.
the school.
Yeah.
And on
exactly.
all of the old sayings of you're learning to read through third grade, and then after third grade, you're reading to learn.
Mhm.
And we'll build the prison size based on third grade reading scores and all those fun little facts they used to throw out there. But I mean, the state has come in and said, here's the tool you will use.
Yep.
And now we're using it and getting information to help us guide instruction at that level.
A lot. Like, this is a lot.
only benchmark.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a lot
So let us
more
know what
after this.
we can do.
When do you want to look at those policies?
We can do anytime. I just want to throw it on your radar. That'd be next month, December. It just needs to be sometimes before, obviously, in the school year,
Sure.
have it in place. Obviously, with Act 20 and more information coming, we'll learn more as we go too about summer school and what that for sure is.
Yeah.
Because a month ago, they didn't have a lot of information out, so it constantly gets updated as well too, so.
Do you want to let us know when you feel like you have enough information about summer school to look at the policies?
Yeah, we can keep looking to see if there's gonna be more updates from session,
Okay.
CISA and what they share out as well too, and kind of see when's the best time to do it, just so we're
Okay.
not changing it after we would create one if we need one.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank
Add
you.
that.
Really helpful.
102. 102 policies. Let's say these would jump to the top though.
Agree. They get easier to read, don't they? Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you.
Instead of having a packet like I usually do, I tried to put it on a page for this first one.
Thank you.
So the first one you can see it probably looks similar, you know, the graph that we normally look at for STAR. So this was given the first 2 weeks of school and just to get the baseline of where kids currently are. Just to recap, we're currently working on implementing Common Lit 360 in reading 6-8. Actually 6 through 9 and parts of that. And then in math, we are implementing Big Ideas Math and U. So as we kind of look at data from last year and the year before, it led us to these decisions to getting a curriculum. It'll be really interesting moving forward how we can compare where kids are during this fall test. So this one I think is a pretty great one to have and where we're moving forward to. One thing to kind of point out, our STAR data, we have a few more pieces of information now with our Common Lit. We also have Tasha, who is pulling kids based on our STAR and our Common Lit, and she's drilling down more detailed using AimsWeb to just figure out what pieces are currently missing. So we did find some outliers. I know the conversation around STAR, we have had lots of conversations around STAR. We have found that with Tasha's assessments and these two, Common Lit and AimsWeb are much more in line than our STAR data. So I just think that that's something to point out as we kind of keep looking at this and make decisions moving forward of what benchmark will be keeping. So kind of here, do you have any questions based on the STAR report that we're used to looking at? Yeah.
Is it Fast Bridge?
Oh, sorry, Fast Bridge.
I was gonna say,
Fast
I
Bridge,
was like,
sorry.
thinking
I
of
think
it.
I was like, you guys.
I just wanted to make sure in my head I was thinking of it. It is Fast Bridge.
It is Fast Bridge, yep.
Compared to last year, was there any grades that went the wrong way in reading or math?
From our last, like in the spring. In our spring.
Or like maybe fall to fall? If you don't, it That's fine.
I didn't know if I had one of the old ones that could tell me right away, but this looks like the last one that I have in my folder from the meetings is on the spring data. So, I mean, we could talk spring for like 7th graders and look at where they are right now for 8th graders or, you know, that kind of thing if you want. Like 7th graders last year. So that would be our current 8th graders. They ended the year at 33% at or above grade level. And now they're at 70. So this was some of the outliers that we were seeing with our Fast Bridge. So kind of.
Say that again.
So last year during our spring, our at or above was at 33% for 7th graders. So those kids right now are 8th graders in the fall.
They went the summer slide, gained them
Summer jump up.
57 points.
Yep, they were on watch. We had 41.
Or 40.
And then intervention, we had 20%, and then urgent intervention 7.
Could certainly be, I don't care
Yeah.
at the end of the school year.
We find that quite a bit. It comes off of the testing. Also, these are the times if any kid is in spring sports, they are all in on spring sports already, traveling. So I mean, that definitely is, you know, we're talking about the whole child. That's definitely something to keep in mind. We can, if we look at the sixth graders from, so if we look at the current seventh graders right now, their end of year sixth grade, we had them at 42%. Now they're at 57. On watch, they were at 24. They're at 30 now. Intervention, they were at 27. Now they're at 12. And then urgent intervention was 6, and now it's 2. So like I said, we did find more of a correlation between the Common Lit and Fast Bridge that Tasha gave to students to just drill down. So just something to kind of keep in mind. But
When you say more of a correlation, what do you mean?
so let's see, for instance, we may have had a student jump up to the 54th, for example, there was one. But on their Common Lit and on their Fast Bridge, they were at, one was at a 9, Fast Bridge was at a 9%, and the Common Lit was at an 11.
Got it. So
So
the
it
outlier was
it
the STAR test.
definitely- And if you look at the longitudinal data for that student, it was
Yeah.
definitely an outlier.
Yeah.
Yes. But we had quite a few outliers with our STAR this year.
Yeah.
Just interesting little tidbits. If we flip over to our Common Lit, one thing I want to point out is that I just had a meeting with the Common Lit rep that we're working with. They currently, the only graph that I could show you all that was not broken down by teacher was this one. They had not had, they are so specific on standards because everything teachers are doing is around specific standards. They hadn't been asked to create a graph for a grade because they, in their mind, they want it to be all individualized so every teacher knows exactly where they are. I said on my view, so I can share out with you, so we're working on a chart and how we can gather that information. So that's one of my goals, to kind of better be able to report out for you on where we are with Common Lit. So these scores that you see are, we have our literacy standards at the top and then our informational standards at the bottom for each grade. This is where they currently are on the pre-assessment. So this is really 6th grade standards right now where kids are scoring 7th and then at 8th. So overall percentage for 6th graders, they're scoring 45% correct on the end of year benchmark already. 44% for 7th graders, and then 58% for the 8th grade students. So we only have room to grow from there. Everything that teachers are doing, every lesson that they're doing, they can see by standard what kids are getting and what kids are not. So in lessons, they'll do a lot of gradual release, and then they work on annotating together to kind of back off, let the students kind of take over. But I know, Rachel, you and I had talked, you had asked a question when we were at the elementary, was that in August? Like, how will you know? Teachers are so informed right now about where students are. When they answer a multiple choice question, they get a blip of like, for every question, every student who's yellow, red, and green, like in real time.
Oh.
So now the question is, what do we do with all that information? So one of our next professional developments that I'm working with Alex, our rep, is on data-driven decision-making. And so we'll look at all of these pieces and what we can use to make better informed decisions. So right now what we're doing, they have lesson checks, but also within a unit, they also have a mid-assessment and an end-of-unit assessment. So it's kind of like at that mid-assessment, we're switching groups around at that advisory time. So within a day of each other, and so they can meet, switch our groups around. Our PLC time has been really huge for that. So thank you for continuing to give us that time, because that is much appreciated. It allows us to make decisions and get the results and do something about it much faster. So that's one thing. Also, Tasha has been a big piece in this. And so I'm continuing, and it's just exciting to see this is all going on with our core, but how she's supporting things outside of core. One thing that she has been really enjoying with Common Lit, she's been able to use out of grade level text for students who are not reading at grade level. still working on standards at the grade level, but bringing it to a piece of work that they can actually read and apply those standards to, because they're already getting the grade level text in the classroom. So that's been a piece that she's really been enjoying. So how we continue to use Common Lit are those things, but there's a lot of progress monitoring, a lot of data that we can keep using. Vocabulary development, all the teachers have said has been fantastic. In the units, especially 8th grade as a suspense unit right now, they said that it's great. So even the informational one that's more in 7th grade right now, it's a little more dry, but they're already seeing a lot of improvement. So it's really good to hear. If we look at math, so math, we had those on the star graph again. We have the bottom two and then the one on the back. Math, how we're using big ideas. Right now, they have a mid-unit assessment. That's something different in this curriculum. It's helped to catch students who need a little bit more support and get them that support before they get to the end of unit. And we really don't know that they didn't know it yet. So that's been a really good thing. There's in-class checks as well to see who's already grasping the lesson and who needs that maybe more support that day and more support on this unit. The curriculum, one thing that they really like, this curriculum has a review and a preview. So the review to keep those skills fresh that they've already taught, and a little bit of a preview to just get them thinking about what's coming next. So the teachers are really enjoying that. And then they also use IXL to support the standards that they're learning in class. They also appreciate the PLC time and getting time to collaborate together. This math program has a lot of online videos to watch. So whatever they're wondering about, they can go on and there's a video that the two of them can sit and have some really great conversations. Right now, they feel good about where they are. They want to stay here before they start adding more in. So, but that's their goal, is get comfortable. And now what's the next thing they can add in? So overall, my goals, I would like to continue to keep learning more about Common Lit 360 and Big Ideas Math and You, so I can support their implementation as they keep going and be that sounding board, the coach, as they're working through decision-making for students. I already talked about aiming to develop a better reporting system out for the school board so you can get a clear picture of where we are. As you look at even the Common Lit data, you can see just from this chart alone, and if you look at a grade or just a classroom, you can clearly see in the red what standards need to be hit more. We've never had this data before. So this is pretty fantastic to be able to see and utilize.
Then would you say then you can save some time on
Yes.
RI 0.8.4 because you're
Yes.
just about there and it's only fall.
And in the PD that we're looking to get, that's one thing she's going to talk about, is when you come to a standard and you're 3/4 green, how can you get the other fourth without having to go through 2 weeks of a unit?
Yeah.
And we would utilize that advisory time for that. So my goal is to continue to support the curriculum adoptions, ensure that they have the resources and the guidance so that things are successful. And yeah, like we said, just interested on how all of this data can be used to make those data-informed decisions, and continue to work with Tasha to build in all of the pieces. Just, it's exciting to hopefully see all of these pieces come together.
How are the teachers holding up?
Great. Their Common Lit is saving them a lot of time.
Great.
All the resources are right there. So their planning time is really focused on this.
Yeah. And lesson internalization and
Yep.
Great.
I have one teacher who she's in the mix of reading and math. She was one I was very worried about. Just checked in with her last week again, and she was like, I'm loving both. This is going great. So she feels like she has everything she needs. And in the classroom, you can tell teachers are feeling comfortable. It's really cool to kind of go around. They all have their own craft, but it's every kid's getting that that high level instruction.
Awesome.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Not gonna lie, I didn't print this off until just now, because I'm like, oh, you sent it to you.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, maybe you want it now. So I printed it off for you, so you can see it in color there, one's for Mr. Wayne right there too. State testing data came out last week on Thursday, I think it was released, which was actually early this year. And then through that, so as in the past, we kind of keep track of CISA 3 ACT results and so on. And then we can dig through on our side a little easier, the cohort trends, which are what each one of those slides is on the bottom. So it goes by the class. So last year's ACT ended up being number 2 in the CISA. And then at a 20.8, there was one school ahead of us there. The average for the CISA that year was 18.8, so below the state average of 19.2. And then you have the overtime data. So since 2015 is the first year it was required for all juniors to take it, we've kept that data up over that whole time. So that's a spreadsheet that I own and stuff, and overall really good over that time. Obviously, it's going to fluctuate here and there a little bit, but we've done, our students and staff have done amazing with that. So there's your last year's ACT, just so you can see that, and that's a composite score. And then you have the cohort trends. So like the class of 2025 is this year's graduating seniors. So their ACT score would have been that 20.8. But you can kind of see the cohort trends through time in both ELA and / reading, and then in the math ones as well. So it's more information so you can see those trends over time. If you start looking through there, I think I mentioned this in the past, that next one, we are trying to keep an eye on. Which one's that? The class of 2026, if you look at that, we're working on trying to improve them, right? But you can kind of see the trend there, where they're at. That little black arrow on those is the state average for that test that year. And then this year, when the state report cards come out next month, they changed the cut scores for a lot of these tests too. So you're going to see some changes in the proficiencies and stuff on last year's test and whatnot. But you can kind of see the trends of each one of those classes there. I know we talked about this year's the 2026 class earlier this summer and stuff. But since I was in the thing, I went through and just did all the classes that did testing, because I figured I had it up and I could just click the buttons and make it a little easier. But you can see the trends throughout there.
So let's say this class of 2026, we have been tracking their forward scores since 2016. I'm sorry, I can't read that.
Yep, that's grade 3 forward. The 2016, 2017 is their grade 3 forward. You will have 1 year missing. That is the year where there was no state testing, which is the 1920 school year. So if you look in there, the fourth one on that one should have been the 1920. So they did not have a grade 6.
Yep.
Right. So yes, I'm sorry. It is a little small there.
That's 3rd, 4th, 5th.
Yep. 3rd, 4th, 5th that year, then 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. And it's pretty consistent with what we're seeing in the classroom too. With that class and with all the classes, it's pretty consistent.
Yeah, 2026 is like fascinating in terms of like math compared to reading.
Yep. They do a little better in math. They're a lot like, when we talked about it, they're a lot like the class, not last year's class before that. There's a lot more of the trades kids, the CTE kids in that class. Our youth apprenticeship numbers with that class would be really large, which is great. They're getting the experiences that they need in order to be successful, which is what our goal is. Which I think is part of why, when we look at the measures that matters report card, I don't have anything updated on that, so I bring it tonight. But as we continue to dig through that, it's really important to highlight those things, because we are getting those kids what they need in order to be successful for what their future looks like.
Any other area you're you're paying close attention to? I mean, I appreciate you pointing out the reading with that class.
In the high school level, that's a big one.
Yeah.
We're seeing, if you go to the class that's 2027, we saw a nice jump back in their math there,
Uh-huh.
which is great. 2028 is pretty consistent. You see a nice jump in the math there too. But they're pretty consistent over time, and you're right, that 2026 one is just an interesting one to see over time. So no, I think a lot of it is what we're doing in classes, and then doing some of this, the life ready stuff that we talk about on Fridays is gonna play into hopefully some of these things and help them with that stuff. As they continue to grow.
I think that's also probably a group that has convinced themselves that they're not good at reading. But yet, these are guys that would open up manual to fix a car or tractor or anything, and they're reading at a very high level. I mean, that's a very advanced
That's the
reading
part that's
level.
like,
Because that's something that's really in their wheelhouse. They don't even think about it. Well, it just makes sense to me, where you put Romeo and Juliet in front of them, they're like, I don't understand any of this stuff, but give me that.
I think motivation is always a big key factor, trying to find ways to keep them motivated.
Yeah.
Cause if you look at the score the previous year on that, they were right around the state average.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, most of the time they're
and
like
it's-
not
it's tough.
super far off,
It's
you
tough,
know,
but
just like a little bit.
I think we're working with them. We do our practice ACT with this class the first week of December. The actual ACT is the second week of March, so we'll have boot camp with them and try to prepare them for that. Obviously, our biggest goal for them is to make sure they're ready when they walk out the door or whatever that next step is. So partly that's this stuff, but Mr. Wainwright's right. A lot of these kids could pick up a manual and tear apart an engine faster than I could probably read some of the books that they're looking at. So, but it's good stuff. And again, this is just more to highlight what those trends look like since we can
Yeah,
do that.
and it's
So you
one
can kind of see
thing.
that.
Right, again, yeah, you're right, one snapshot.
Yep.
A moment in time.
You got this all the way back to fourth grade.
I just, since I had the buttons, I went all the way back to, yes, it was the fourth grade, because they
No,
were
I-
taking the test last year.
I
I happened to be there, so
I
I'm
do
like,
too.
I'm just gonna keep going.
Yeah.
Way
No,
simpler.
that's-
It's good.
Rather
to see
than
how
telling
they
those
grow
people,
or
hey,
not
go
grow.
put your data in here. I just thought I'd just go through it. I was
Yeah.
headed up. So
Great.
it's neat to see them.
Yeah.
It's always good to see how that's tracked.
And the arrow was helpful too.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's
Right.
put
Okay.
on there. and
It went down a little bit compared to what?
so. Andy, anything?
Which color is proficient and which color
Yep,
is?
so the bottom ones, the blue and like the teal color, that's your proficient and meeting.
Okay,
So the
That's-
bottom two are the proficient and meeting, the yellow and the orange are, yellow is approaching and then the orange is in.
Developing now, is that the right?
Yeah.
They
Sorry,
changed.
they changed the words on me. Well, it would just be helpful to see that snapshot since it did come out last week here.
Yeah.
We're able to
Yeah.
see that stuff, so.
These are seniors, juniors,
senior, junior,
sophomores,
sophomores.
freshmen, eighth. 7, 6, 5th, 4th. Oh, cool.
Yep.
Thank you.
Really helpful.
All right, next we'll go to first reading of policies out of policy committee.
I don't have any fancy colored,
No?
no. Do you want me to go through all of them? One by one?
We should do like a heat map of how far we have gone and how far we still have to go.
Yeah, we should. It would be hot.
Okay, well, we got the immediate
That was
meetings.
compared to like priorities.
We got the summary from Mr. Wainwright in advance. I don't know if you want to hit the highlights or.
I'll say the two things. The first two we're removing completely because they're stated elsewhere.
Yeah,
So that was the big one. Policy 151. 0.5. Oh, you sent an
Okay,
updated email
yeah.
about that, didn't you?
Yes. That was, I had presented 151.1 and it was supposed to be 151.5. We actually reviewed the incorrect policy at the meeting, so we'll have to bring back
Okay.
that policy in a future meeting.
That's
Okay.
fine.
Board member conflicts of interest, it was just using, sample policies. Adding, board members, volunteer as school bus drivers. We're really utilizing the WASB examples and the samples because they're well-written.
Yeah.
They're legally
Embedded.
reviewed.
Right.
Makes a huge difference.
171.1, we didn't have to make any updates on that. I'm trying to read my,
Right, like the Democrat is our
right,
official paper, so it's just basically including that in the policy. 188 is. We had 188, it just had been updated more recently, so
mhm.
basically there wasn't really a change, it was just. Here's the most recent review of that policy.
Same with, 233.1. 223, sorry. Say 233 or 223?
223.
Yeah, 223.
One, even in the WASB review, it's not 0.1. They say it is, but
It's not.
it's not a 0.1.
Okay.
There's no such policy for the.
225, the district administration evaluation, it doesn't cover the tool or the process, it covers.
It
Remind me.
doesn't explain the tool that should be used, so that's up to a partnership here, but it does, it states kind of a timeline. It should be the first year, and then at least once every 3 years, school board does an annual review of me, but then it also goes into building level administration as well. Kind of sets up the same kind of a schedule, but we do a yearly basis as well. So I was just kind of clarifying that point within that policy.
Yep. 310, we just updated to match the requirements of the state statute. And then 321, the school calendar and year.
At least by the April board meeting, we should be presenting that. It could come before,
Oh.
but by April at the latest is when we should be.
We've
approving that.
typically done it later than
For the
that.
school calendar.
We usually, is that on our work plan properly?
I think it might be in the March,
Okay.
if I
Yeah,
think of the
okay.
work plan or whatever.
We'll
Policy
remember to
will
look at
state
that.
April, but it could come before that.
Okay.
Oh, nothing major, nothing.
And there are 100 policies to be reviewed in table 4. So this is the first batch of 100 policies there.
Work.
Who nominated me to be on this? this time around?
I said not
Money
it.
well
I think
spent,
it
though.
ended.
I think what we're gonna do is probably split them up and look at them. Like between the three of us, split them up in chunks and look at them that way. But definitely if there's policies that need to be brought forward sooner than these, we would focus on those.
And coming out of committee too, the plan was to kind of pause that review process in January to kind of review student handbooks and get those things. That was kind of
Yeah.
a direction school board members had said they would like to see is that coming out sooner. So we'll pause the review of all the other policies to kind of tackle that piece in that month.
Back to the board member participation via technology. I thought we already had like revised our policy that was kind of temporarily in place during COVID for remotely joining a meeting.
Policy review, I think there was some updates that we didn't have
In that policy?
Correct.
The last time we updated, it was just minor. wording. Forward.
I believe in the table, it said you have this policy had just been updated like the year after we adopted it, there was just some slight updates, so we just approved the updates to that policy, so no major changes there.
Okay. I mean, it looks like this first reading says that the board needs to make a motion to approve that any member join remotely before the meeting starts. And I thought we had decided that wasn't necessary. Unless I'm not remembering it right.
Maybe we
You know
can
what I'm
add that to
saying?
the-
Oh, we didn't.
Here.
That language wasn't the last time.
We wanna look at it now, or do we
Say that
wanna
again.
find that? as
We would
homework?
have to vote on it before they were able to join.
At the beginning of the meeting, we would make a motion to allow them to join. And then we would vote on that, right?
Right.
And we said. No, we didn't need to do
I
that.
thought we had a policy that basically allowed any member to join remotely if needed, as long as the public could hear their comments.
We'll look at it.
vote,
I think you're right.
And as long as there was no, as long as,
It wasn't a close.
it wasn't in a closed session.
And you're saying that that piece about us voting on them before joining is still in there?
Yeah, under the 188 first reading here.
But instead of having the first reading, I don't know if we need to make a motion, but we add this to our list to look at the existing, like the policy that we updated in the spring,
Yeah.
because we might not even need to review it. Right? Because of the
I
timing.
just want to be clear on what our stance is. for
Yeah.
that. I mean, I just want to be consistent. I mean, this seems like a little bit more strict than,
No. We reviewed based on WASB's recommendations. We reviewed the policy based on WASB's recommendation. Yes.
Yes.
all right, I mean, I don't want to belabor the point, but I mean,
I think what you're saying makes sense. We
the
should,
policy
We
as
should get it right.
the
Yeah.
policy as you have it listed says an individual board member has no right to insist upon the ability to participate in any capacity in any board meeting remotely via telephone conference or other technology. And then the third paragraph says any temporary exception to this policy that would permit board members remote participation in any board meeting must be authorized by a motion that's approved by standard majority vote of the board.
yeah, and we decided for the long term, that could get really, like in terms of the long game of board governance, it could get really dicey if we
Mhm.
start voting people off the island because they have to
Right.
come in on remote.
So we'll go
Um,
back and review that.
Yeah.
I just thought the spirit of this current board was to be a little more relaxed with
is.
allowing
It
members
is.
to join remotely, and this doesn't seem consistent with that spirit.
So
Yeah.
you can approve the first reading with the exception of 88 at this meeting.
Yeah.
There's no action.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's no action. Yeah.
Right, and then that would be a first reading again
Again.
of that one.
Well. Why?
Because it would be a new policy if it was amended at all.
Or we may not need to bring it back at all, you mean? Because
Well,
if
we
we're
have
not
to-
changing it,
There was a list from WASB to do something,
Right,
so whatever the recommendations from WASB stated with regard to the new requirements within this, they're saying we have to abide by. But it may not include that piece that you just went over.
Right.
It might have been other
right.
items. But if we made those changes and put that back out there, couldn't you just approve those changes at your second? Reading?
As a second reading?
I believe so. I think we're reviewing the first reading.
Okay,
Make those updates and approve the.
Yeah, we've amended first readings in the past and brought them back as
for a
second readings.
Okay, yeah,
With the
okay, that makes
amendments.
sense to me. Okay, great, thank you, Angie. All right, should we move on?
Yes.
Okay. So now we're, we need a motion to approve the second reading of these policies. We kind of discussed these last time during first reading. I don't think anything was commented on for amendment. Was there, Mitch?
No, it's not.
So none of these were amended from first reading to second reading. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I think these were all the major ones that needed to be added to our policy, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
These are higher numbers with the exception of the 423, which we had in place.
Correct.
There were no amendments first.
Okay, I'll take a motion to approve these policies together, or we can approve them separately.
I'll make a motion to approve the second reading all at once.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions about those as listed? Andy?
Roby?
Yep.
Bergstrom?
Yes.
Bush?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Dunn?
Yes. The next is approving the up-to-date school budget for this year.
It's as current as I can give you until tomorrow morning when the state releases the final numbers into our revenue limit worksheet. As we had shared earlier, when you approved the preliminary budget back at the beginning of the summer, I attached this document in board book earlier today, sent out an email notifying everyone, and then I have a paper copy. So the middle column, while it says current year, is actually the previous year. It's the 23-24 school year. You see, we ended the year with a surplus of $5,000. That was after all of the audits, all of the transitions and transfers of monies. We ended up with that surplus of, $5,000. Moving forward, based on some assumptions and some known information, the 24-25 school year, I would say one of the assumptions comes into our voucher program under an expenditure. We increased that number from $122,000 to $126,000. That's based on some of the most recent information provided to us. It's not 100% accurate yet. We'll get that information hopefully tomorrow. But there was a slight increase in that dollar amount. But you see our Fund 10 revenues, property tax, open enrollments, and general education aids, which is the equalized value there, equalized aid. Our expenditures come out to be basically $12,444,000. Our revenues are $11,946,000. So in the summer, when you approved a preliminary budget, we were looking much closer to about a $580,000 deficit with some updated information, updated staffing, current salaries. We're looking at about a $494,000 deficit. So we've trimmed about $90,000 off of that, having more accurate information, staffing numbers. And like I said, we won't know the final, but by approving this budget, we had talked about knowing that there was going to be a deficit. We would be deficit spending this year. We've already been able to reduce that deficit somewhat. You approve the budget as presented tonight. Then when we certify the levy, there will be some budget amendments because we'll get the most recent updated information. So I would recommend, while not happy talking about a deficit, I feel better that it's moving in the right direction. And I would recommend approval of the budget as presented.
Can I ask 2 questions?
Sure.
so the voucher line, it's 126,000. That's for non-public private schools. What is the voucher for?
In our revenue limit worksheet, it's listed as the Wisconsin Parent Choice Program and the Racine County Parent Choice
Okay.
Program. Although in the state of Wisconsin now vouchers are statewide,
Statewide.
but that is money that basically the state says, we're going to give this to you and record it as a revenue, and then we're taking it away from you. You will never see this dollar amount.
Yeah,
So we end up taxing our property taxpayers
yeah.
that amount of money to send to those voucher programs.
Okay, that's what I thought it was. And they also get reimbursed at like 85% for special ed, something, that same program, right?
Yes,
I don't love that number, just for the record.
yes.
Uh,
It's much higher than what we get reimbursed for special education.
it is very much. And then what's the all other expenditures line entail?
I'm assuming that, and not asking Danielle specifically, but I'm assuming that would be some of our referendum payouts on the
Oh,
on
right.
the elementary
Okay.
school building to get to that level
Okay.
would be interest and principal payments on that loan.
Thank you.
Did I hear you say this is the first school year where local families could use a voucher for private school?
No, that's been the case for a while now.
It has been.
Yes. We also pay mileage. You remember having those
Yeah.
conversations? We
I
pay
knew
mileage per student, not per family.
Yeah.
So some of those expenses come into play there as well.
Okay, I'll take a motion to approve this budget as presented.
Almost.
A second.
Okay, Skelding, Johnston, any final comments, questions?
Is 494 worst case scenario, or could it grow tomorrow?
I would be surprised if it grows. If you remember last year, we tend to be a little bit conservative if we can, I'd rather, a wise man once told me, be conservative with your revenues and a little bit, looser with your expenditures. That helps, give you a better budget picture. I would be shocked if it went the other direction. Our hope is that it might pare down even a little bit more.
Okay.
The other thing to point out is if indeed we use 494,000, if I just round it up to 500,000, we would get additional revenue the following year in state aid based on about it'll be about 23 cents on the dollar. So about $100,000, we would see an additional state aid in the 25-26 school year, that fiscal year.
And then just along those lines, and I think we might mention it later as well, but we will have, once we get the actual numbers amendments to these prior to the levy certification on the 28th, which requires 5 of us to be here. So if you can't be here that night, maybe let Aaron know in advance in case we have to reschedule. Because we'll need 5 instead of 4 that night.
And it has to be live.
By that,
Yeah,
the
so
28th.
the sooner the better.
And can do it.
The week prior.
Got it. Okay,
Because there'll be budget amendments, there has to be at least 5. And in order to approve that amendment, all 5 would have to vote yes. We have to have that majority of a vote of all board members, not just those present.
You maybe call in. Be quick.
I appreciate you telling me. I'll make a mental note. I think Will and Julie are planning on coming, but I'll try to send an email out to everyone just to make sure we have a quorum. Okay. We have a motion and a second.
Skelding,
Yes.
Bergstrom,
Yes.
Bush,
Yes,
Yes.
Yes. Okay, next is board business. There was a Wazoo Regional meeting last week. Did anybody go?
No.
No, I don't know if Joni went or not.
Okay, it's possible Joni went. Is she the last, who's the CISA delegate?
I believe so, but I believe it was at Fenimore. And I think Will was out, so I don't know. I know there was a conversation, so I don't know if Joni went in Will's place that night or not.
Okay. We talked about the special meeting on October 28th. Rachel can't be there. Everyone else is planning on being there.
Yep.
Ooh, wait a minute. Mitch, didn't I tell you that I'm not gonna be there?
You did.
Okay,
So we'll
Well,
step
now it
up and
just
take
got
one for the
interesting.
team.
very interesting.
Well, when we
How's-
plan, let's confirm with Will and Joni and then.
Yeah, if we need to change it.
Are you sure? Because we could we move it to the 21st, which is the Monday, which is next Monday?
No,
You won't have the data, will you?
let's see, you could do it on Monday, the 21st, as long as it's a 6 o'clock meeting again.
What's happening that night?
I have another referendum meeting that night,
Okay,
a little bit later in the evening, so.
okay.
Is it pretty quick? Like, we
Yes.
get the
I
data.
feel like it's a fast meeting.
Cause
Is
I
that-
could
The last
If
couple
call
weeks,
in.
we've added.
If we don't
additional-
add agenda items, it'll be a 10-minute
Okay, so I
As
could
long as-
call in. I'll just step away. I'm out of town and I have work like. till
I could
7:30
also
at night.
call in,
On the 28th,
yeah. Would
So
that be your
if-
preference, or should we just move it to Monday? Move it to
Let's-
21st?
Let's keep it where it's at.
yeah, if we can do it, we'll
Find out
call
from
in on the
those two,
28th, that's what we
And
have
then if we
published
have to,
that
we'll
date.
call it.
Okay,
Yeah, let me know if Joni and Will can't do it and I'll just figure out a way to call in. It'll be fine. Yeah.
Prior, so we already had it out last week. But we had to, we can,
the publication to announce the date of the meeting, you mean?
it has to be 2 weeks prior to the actual meeting. And so,
Okay,
We'll make the
It also
28th work.
gives Danielle a little more time to identify any
That's what I was thinking.
additional pieces of the amendment she wants to get in there right away.
That's if she gets it tomorrow, you know? Right.
They're supposed to put, this is data that's put into our revenue limit worksheet by the state. These are not numbers that are sent to us for us to put it in. You just
Oh,
refers
so
to
she
rev.
doesn't touch it and turn it around.
There's only a few places that we would look
Okay.
at doing anything. We talked about defeasance as one.
Yeah,
You know, we had what we levy for Fund 80 on a yearly basis. We put that in that revenue limit worksheet, but the voucher numbers and some of the state aid and property values, all those things just get pre-populated for us.
notice has already been put out there.
right, I'm hearing you. Better keep it.
So, I'm not saying that, like, I thought you said. Sorry, we're good.
Okay.
If you want to do it on the 21st because other people can't make it, we can make it.
Okay. Okay. Next on board business is the strategic plan meeting. Basically, we decided that, first of all, we wanted to just make sure we do this right and slow down, get all the information we want to have. And then start to put something together. And we concluded that we wanted to get more information, mainly from stakeholders like current students, recent grads, parents,
Mhm.
staff. and ask questions like, what's everyone feel like the district is doing well? What's your perception of where we need to improve? Those kind of questions. And then try to, and maybe individualize some of those surveys depending on whether it's to alumni or students, like what do you wish you would have learned in school, that kind of thing for alumni, et cetera. Maybe some kind of engagement questions for parents, like how could we, communication type questions, those kind of things. So we're working on that, but we did decide to set a date, like I said, for the meeting, just to kind of work on kind of the wordsmithing of the plan of the mission statement and the vision statement to get it where we want it. So that's on the 18th. Did I miss anything from that?
I just think it was like, focus on the referendum right now.
Right.
We wordsmith the mission and the core values and stuff, because we didn't feel like that was beneficial for the stakeholders to kind of work on in a group setting.
Right.
Like we own that, and then we get together, what was it, February?
Mhm.
To get stakeholders, I think, together. If my memory serves me.
I think that's the tentative timeline we wanted. But with survey data ahead of time, but prior to that, right?
Most we can bring, like, here's what kids said they wish they would have learned. Here's what, yeah. Here's what they loved that we shouldn't change.
Right.
I think the other important piece out of that meeting is we kind of changed the power dynamic a little bit
Yes, thank
from
you.
where it has been traditionally in the last 10 to 15 years, where the board sets a strategy and tells the superintendent and the administrators what the strategy is, and yielding that power to the people who have been educated, that are in the day-to-day, and have them come to us with what their goals are, their, the one big idea or the strategies, and come to us with that, along with the three topics we've already set for ourselves,
Right.
to come up with a nice solid strategic plan instead of which was a change. So it'll be
Yeah, I didn't
it'll be
realize
fun to
that.
see.
I didn't realize that the admin team didn't do the last, I mean, clearly there was stakeholder engagement in it because it was very long, but I didn't realize that was a change.
Yeah, I
We're
think,
not micromanaging the strategic plan.
right.
They're not.
Well,
Yes. Good, we shouldn't be.
I think the thought was to give, Mr. Wainwright and his
Yeah.
team the opportunity to be like, well, this is where we think the district should go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we're kind of letting us get through the referendum,
Yeah.
maybe do some more data gathering. Let the admin kind of reflect. And then maybe after the holiday break would put something back together.
Right.
Okay. Do we have anything under employee services, Mitch?
We do not. I'd like to back up, just as a reminder, November 25th is the building rep meeting out at the Options School. That's November 25th. And again, I point out October 23rd in the middle school, high school building will be that next public forum. I have smaller meetings. I've been meeting with lots of different groups, getting on their agendas, anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes to 30 minutes, depending on what they have available. But that public forum will be here in the middle school, high school building, 6 o'clock on October 23rd.
That's a Wednesday.
That is a Wednesday.
Thursday, the 17th, we have picture. If any of you missed the original picture day and want to have. and Morning, till 11.
So yeah, you can jump over employee services. We have nothing.
Okay. Well, in that case. We already talked about next meeting, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn at 7:50 PM.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Thank you.
Okay.
This will.